If you have been following my channel over the past 2 months, then you will know that I've been playing through WoW Classic for the first time ever, and well, I just hit level 60 for the first time ever. Now, whilst I am still playing on my main character Sniff, in fact, I would even say that my gear is pretty good, at least for pre-raid gear anyway. Now, whilst I'm waiting for my first ever classic raid to actually happen next week, I've got a couple of options for videos to make. Either I make a video about me doing 400 battlegrounds in a row, or we start a new character on a new class and experience the world all over again, but from a completely different angle. So I put up a poll last week asking you guys which class I should try next. And I'm going to be totally honest, I had no intention of ever playing a warlock. I kind of just threw it into the mix just because why not? But that left us with rogue, druid, and mage. Now, I really like the PvP style of rogue, and they're also pretty solid when it comes to PvE content as well. But I think it would just be a little too similar to warrior in the sense that it's a melee DPS. Now, a lot of people seem to want to see me play a druid, and I'm totally on board for playing druid. In fact, it was always going to be my second choice of class. However, there is one huge factor that plays into a mage, and that's the gold making potential that mage has. As a warrior main, I don't really have any options when it comes to making gold aside from professions, so that's what I went with. Besides, I really like the utility that mage brings. It seems to be a really unique way to play the game. As for my race, I did do some research, and it seems that gnome is definitely the pick for mages on Alliance. So I picked a human, and this time we went with the female option since I think Sniff needs a little bit of companionship as he has been pretty lonely recently. Elwyn Forest, an absolute bouquet of smells, the fresh greenage, the trees, and the slight fishiness of the murlocs. Truly a perfect zone for an MMO. I started off by rearranging my UI to how I like, and I've had quite a few people ask me about my UI, and honestly, I try my best to keep it as simple as possible and as close to vanilla as I can without the game being uncomfortable to play. We picked up our first quests. We of course got stuck straight into murdering wolves and kobolds. Now, the first time I did this 2 months ago, there were so many people here that you had to join a 5-man group in order to get a mob tag, and it's worth noting that I started filming this at 5 AM, so we were pretty much uninterrupted, and I gotta say, it was nice, somewhat relaxing even, to just run around slinging spells at mobs. And much easier than warrior since I don't have to sit and eat something every 5 seconds to regain some health. Once I turned in the first 2 quests, I then went and did basically the same as the last quest in that we have to kill 10 kobolds, but these are located further up the back of Northshire. Next, we headed up the back to do the bandana quest, which I never actually got to do the first time around, since I just skipped over it because there was just so many people all trying to do it at once. We were then introduced to our class trainer, and we were able to learn Frostbolt and Conjure Water, but for whatever reason, I walked right past Conjure Water, despite the fact that it would have been incredibly useful. We then headed to the back of the zone to take out the kobold laborers, and of course keeping an eye out for any chests that may spawn in there. At level 5, I headed back to the class trainer and actually acquired Conjure Water this time. And lastly, for Northshire, I headed back to the bandits area to complete the quest Millie's Harvest and then kill Garrick for his head. And I then started to make my way out of Northshire and into Goldshire, one of my favourite places in the entire game. Just a perfect little inn and blacksmiths in the middle of the forest. Of course, I gathered every quest I could, starting with more kobold murder in attempt to collect 8 large candles and 10 gold dust. It was also around this point that I decided that I wouldn't log off until I had managed to run the dungeon, the Dead Mines. But I would want to wait until around level 17, so I've got a little ways to go yet. I then quickly stopped by Billy in order to do his nice and simple boar killing quest. I also quickly did the scouting quest. We will forget that that happened. Now, after that, I figured we had a little bit of work to do, starting with visiting our class trainer and learning everything we could, and then taking a quick trip to Stormwind, where I picked up 2 professions, herbalism and mining. I also made a stop at the auction house to pick up Mage Weave bags and a lesser magic wand, before making my way back into Elwyn Forest to continue questing. I made my way to the east of Elwyn to attempt to kill the mini-boss princess. Now, one reason I really wanted to give Mage a try was because of the weird things that Mage can do, like jumping around a fence until you're able to kill it. And that's exactly what I tried doing against Princess, and I gotta say, I felt really cool. I spent the next couple of hours completing all the quests that I could over by the sawmill area, killing wolves, killing bears, collecting wood, and killing murlocs. All perfectly standard Elwyn Forest stuff. Until I eventually made my way over to the west of Elwyn to complete the Hogger kill quest, and I made friends with some random guy who agreed to kill it with me, and we just stood talking in the forest for like an hour, and that to me is what MMOs are all about. Just two random dudes having a conversation in the middle of a forest. We were now quite a few hours into my new character, and we had made some very good progress so far. We had gotten 2 professions to level, a wand, a friend, and we were also level 10, meaning I could start to assign my first talent points. Now, I would first start to put points into Fire Mage, at least until I unlocked Blizzard and could start learning how to AoE farm. But now we had done all of the quests available in Elwyn Forest and could now start to think about moving to another zone. So I started journeying west and headed into Westfall. Starting off our journey in Westfall, I of course picked up the quests that are right at the start of the zone and got to work collecting the Ochra, Gore Tusk Snouts, Stringy Vulture Meat, and the Murloc Eyes. And of course I was picking up any oats that I saw along the way. I then started doing the People's Militia quest chain, as that would eventually lead me into getting the Dead Mines quests. I continued running around Westfall for a good few hours, doing basically any quest that I could get my hands on, and got to a point where I really only had one quest left to do, and it was just a little bit too high of a level for me, so I decided to find another place to quest for a while, and went with Dunmorrow. Things were pretty low level here, but not low enough to the point where I can't gain XP anymore. But that also meant that I could just blast through any quest here nice and easily. I went and did all of the gnome quests that are just outside of Nomergon, went into a cool frozen cave to murder a load of trolls, and even went up a hill to steal a load of weed from some more trolls. Really just a bad day to be a troll, I guess. Everything was going well, but again I quickly ran out of quests to complete, so I started heading up towards the back of Dunmorrow and did the Mange Claw kill quest and started making my way towards Loch Moden. I started doing the small quest chain located just outside of Thelsamar, which was really just run here, kill trogs, turn in quest, go back, kill more trogs, before I eventually made my way into Thelsamar. Look, I know I keep saying this about every place, but this really is one of my favourite locations in WoW. It's just such a cozy place with one of the best building styles in the game. I loaded up my quest log with as many quests as I possibly could and got straight to work. The thing I like about questing here is that all the quests kind of work together. Like I'm heading to one location to do one thing, but oh look, there's a spider I need to tear off its legs and give it to a psychotic dwarf. After tearing things up at the kobold camp, I headed further up the zone, killing boars, bears and spiders as I went, in order to collect a couple more quests, which would send me on a journey into a mine in order to kill even more kobolds and tear off their ears and return them to him. I told you the dwarfs were psychotic. I then finished up by doing the Blood Sausage kill quest and made my way back into Thelsamar in order to turn in a gazillion quests. Truly one of the greatest feelings in WoW, being able to march back into town and turn in a load of quests. After that, the rest of the quests here were just too high of a level for me, so I went back into Stormwind and started smelting up the ore that I had been passively gathering. And I also made a quick stop at my class trainer in order to update my abilities before I headed back into Westfall, because we were now level 17 and could take on the Dead Mines. Now, I was just so eager to get myself into the dungeon and start grinding out XP and loot that I completely forgot about picking up any quest, and I hadn't even killed the Defias messenger yet. So I let that thought rest in the back of my mind and continued to do the dungeon anyway. We eventually made our way through to the first boss, Rakzor, and I gotta say, it's a little weird being a caster, because the first time I did this, I was obviously a tank, but I kind of like it, being able to bring so much utility to the team. It's also worth noting that this dungeon has quite a few good pieces of gear for me, primarily the Emberstone staff, and the wand would also be a welcomed thing to have, and I suppose the ring as well. Continuing through the dungeon, we made our way to Sneed and took him down, and he dropped a pair of cloth gloves, which I did need on because why not? We then went and started to kill Gilnid, who would have the chance to drop the lavishly jeweled ring. And what do you know? He actually did drop it. And of course we needed on it, and won, which was nice. We then made our way along the wooden platform to kill Mr. Smite, and then up along the ship to kill Captain Greenskin, who would have the chance at dropping the Emberstone staff. But sadly, it didn't drop this time. So whilst we were doing Van Cleef, we ended up just nuking him down and ignoring the ads, and sadly, we died to them after. Sadly though, we never ended up going back to kill Captain Cookie, so we didn't even get a chance to get the wand this time. So we had now done our first dungeon on our new character, and that means I had completed the little goal that I had set for myself. However, we never did any of the quests, and I still really wanted to get my hands on that staff. So I decided to quickly kill the Defias messenger so that I could do the quest and head straight back into the dungeon for another chance at getting my staff. Now, run number 2, I have to apologise because I've lost the footage for it. I have no idea where it went, so I'm sorry. But basically, we got the wand, but we never ended up getting the staff, which is a shame. But we went back for a third one, which was possibly the worst dungeon run I have ever had. The run started just like any other. We cleared our way to Rakzor and got him down no problem, albeit we did take him in a weird location, but no matter. Then we get to Sneed, and well, we take the mech down, and the tank walks right past Sneed himself whilst I'm trying to evade him with the tools that I have. But no matter, that could just be a mistake that anyone could make, right? Then he proceeds to pull the entire of the next room, blame the warrior, and then leaves. Now that's the World of Warcraft experience I was missing. Now, I did try my best to try and teach the warrior how to tank, but I figured he was either brand new to the game or extremely high. So we find another person that isn't even a tank, but is instead a rogue. But we press on anyway, and we eventually get to Mr. Smite, and we do manage to take him down. And then another 30 minutes later, we finally make it to Mr. Greenskin, and we take him down, and the staff drops, and I win the role. So thank God those 2 hours I just spent in the dead mines didn't go to waste. I hope you all enjoyed today's video because I enjoyed making it. I always do. I really enjoyed Mage, to be honest. It's definitely different from Warrior, but that's kind of what I was looking for anyway. Now, if you are a Mage main, feel free to give me some tips in the comments. I would appreciate some guidance because this will probably take a little bit of getting used to, I suppose, especially when I start learning how to do AoE farming and all that fancy stuff. Anyway, I will stop yapping now. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.